Hello and welcome to our first episode of Worldbuild With Us. My name is Rob. That's Chris. We're going to basically just sit down and build a fantastical world with you guys and do it step by step, do it organically, hopefully have some fun, hopefully have...
lack of planning.
Oh yeah, complete lack of planning. We have no script. We're just going off of the cuff. If this is helpful to you at all, let us know. That'd be great. But mostly, it's for if you're interested in tabletop RPGs, if you are interested in building a fantasy world for a book you're writing, or if you just want to sit and listen to us be incredibly creative and figure some stuff out, that's fine too. Yeah. So, Chris.
Yes.
Where would you like to start with our general concept? For now, we're going to stick to not a generic, because we're going to gussy it up and make it look interesting and sound cool, but we're going to go with a fairly standard fantasy, because I think that's where you and I both have the most interest and also experience with stuff like that. Like, I know you're way more into space opera than I am, and sci-fi in general.
Post-apocalyptic.
Yes, I have a problem with post-apocalyptic stuff, but it's mostly because I never grew up on Fallout. And I've talked to you ad nauseum about why I find Fallout to be...
You don't like the dark humor and the mix.
I don't like... It's too tonally dissonant for me. So yeah, first rule, we're not going to have it be like Fallout. I want a consistent tone.
Hard rule.
I want a consistent tone. So, where would you like to start? We have a fantasy world.
So, normally if I'm building a world, I'm going to think about what kind of campaign I wanted to run in it. But
okay,
there's no...
So you want to start with a theme and then kind of build around that? Or maybe just like a genre or subgenre? Because like in fantasy worlds that I've built before... I typically have a country act as a type of setting or a subgenre that I like to do.
Normally I build out of like what do I want the players to be doing ideally. So do I want them hunting monsters? Do I want them ruling a country? I've noticed that throughout the time I usually want some sort of business or organization that they are either a part of or they found. I feel like it gives a lot of structure.
Yeah, so you're looking for a framing device in an RPG setting. So maybe that's kind of an interesting way to start, is to start small. See, I was thinking that we would start with like a broad concept and kind of narrow it down from there. But if you want to start in the opposite way... No,
because you could even start in the broad concept to get to that by being like, okay, gods. Because say you want the group to be part of a religious organization.
Okay.
Then if you start with gods, how did they make the world?
Yeah, that's where I typically go as well. It's like how to... So, but that actually brings up an interesting point, because I had an idea recently that I've kind of been mulling over in my head, and I thought it would be kind of a cool concept to start with. I have this idea where every city, or perhaps every town, has a different god. And basically, what it would allow you to do is kind of... If you were a brand new person in this world, it would allow you to travel from town to town and city to city and experience entirely new, like almost like the original Star Trek, like how there was like Nazi planet, Westworld planet, and then whatever the prop department had for planet number 3, like that. But the idea would be
with cities,
right? But with each individual city. Each god would kind of represent a certain different aspect, and they would obviously kind of manifest differently. So in certain cities, you could have an idol that deals out, divine power, either as a collective, so like everyone is powerful in their own right, or you could have another city where there's a single individual who is just the avatar for that city, right? And then you could even go even weirder if you want to do like JoJo style, like every city has a different weird manifestation of its power, of its goddom, and of its divine power based on what that particular city is, or rather what that god represents.
Is that a JoJo reference?
It is absolutely a JoJo reference.
So here's a question: is each city self-contained, or are they still part of a nation?
I would imagine that it's more like a giant. See, that's actually part of the thing that I didn't really think about. Is I could see it where it's kind of like each city is basically a nation, where there's just a massive. It's a mass of warring city-states, but obviously certain gods are just going to become more powerful. That's just how it is. Certain stands in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure are just inherently more powerful, but I think that it'd be really fun to kind of explore, like, this god is very intelligent and clever, has a weird ability, but man, does it work for this very specific situation that it's in. So, for example, like...
Catch the Rainbow.
What?
Catch the Rainbow.
What do you mean?
Isn't that the name of one of the...
That's a Skittles ad.
What's the name of the stand, song, Catch the Rainbow, Dancing in the Rain? I don't know.
Wow, you're... What? Give me a reference here.
He's a stand that is only powerful when it's raining.
Oh, he's not only powerful when it's raining, he's just more powerful because in transfer... Aqua Necklace, I think, is in part 4, the first episode.
No, something with rainbows.
Okay.
Over the rainbow.
All right, well...
Hasn't been in a cartoon yet.
Oh, I don't know.
Read it when I was looking at the wiki.
Yeah, I don't know the manga. I've only watched the anime because I'm a fake JoJo fan. So
I don't spoil. I wanted JoJo stand ideas, but anyhow, here.
But the idea would be right. Yeah. Like each individual city has its own patron god, and that patron god is very good at a certain something, and it's dependent on the followers to use that very specific power to be kind of clever with it. And so you can have a mercantile, like let's say that you're the god of mercantilism. Like, what does that do for you? What's that power look like? How does that manifest? I think it'd be kind of interesting exploration rather than have like, the idea that I like about it is rather than have a pantheon of gods where like everyone acknowledges, oh yeah, this god is this god is that. I like the idea of each city being like, there is one god and this is my god. And yes, we acknowledge that these are other gods or other powerful creatures, but for some reason I like the idea of going out and exploring each individual city. So maybe there's something that we can do where...
Why they're exploring the cities and everything.
Right, why they're exploring, like, maybe there's something that is, keeping these city-states separate, rather than... I suppose the question would be, why isn't there a dominant or a dominating god that is spreading its influence?
Well, it doesn't quite fit. One of the ideas that I had as you were talking was, what if there was something that did function as like a de facto capital, and in that place, no god has power, but his followers do.
Okay, so it's kind of like a senate almost. So each representative comes and. Yeah. But what I suppose the question would be, what happens to the cities that don't really have a lot of power? Like the power is in an item, let's say, or if that is in fact where we want to go. Like,
well, from there, if the power is only in the item could imbue powers to other items, maybe, or maybe it's the fact that it's up to the prophets and saints or other people who follow the god, because. Who's to say? Maybe you could be an all-powerful god, but your followers are just really stupid or clumsy. But maybe this one god, not very powerful, but very
has really
devout.
Good power. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's interesting. So like having a kind of like, how faithful are you, and how like you could have, oh, this god doesn't give us much power, but we are the most fervent. So that's actually quite interesting. And the idea, I've had kind of an idea for a while now based around this. I picked it up off of an old Dan Carlin hardcore history, where he's talking about these ancient civilizations which would go and like, okay, there's Babylon, we're going to take the Babylonian god of Marduk, which is basically a statue. And that's kind of like the idea that I have, is that each city that you would travel to has a statue, and so you could have something like a big bad come in and this is my statue, or even smash like a god killer, you know, that kind of thing.
Oh, what was the name of that guy in Thor?
Which one?
Thor comics, the God Killer.
Oh, yeah, literally the God Killer.
Guess
Gore the God Butcher. God Butcher.
God Butcher. He was right.
Yeah, well, actually, I think that'd be pretty cool, though. You know, like, kind of going through and having a particular nation or god be just the merciless one who comes in. Or maybe there's like a league or something like that where we can kind of have nations that are just collections of pantheons together. And so it's a constant god war type situation.
So they didn't maybe form... Like all the ones that are brute strength don't necessarily have to get along. Maybe they even purposely don't get along, but they flesh themselves out almost like the way a party would.
How so?
So, if you were a god of lightning, or say storms or anything, you don't want another god of storms in your group. You're just like, screw that. I don't want someone quite literally stealing my thunder. What? Fuck you.
No, that was great. Yeah, that was fucking great.
Yeah. But say you do want someone who is Lord of the Oceans, or maybe goddess or god of the hunt, because you don't understand that. Or even just having someone who's like mercantile god to be like, listen, I don't understand coin. I hit things.
So maybe the idea would be like, so they're leagues of gods basically then.
Yeah.
So I like that idea. I like the idea that you gather the perfect god squad together, and like that makes up different nation types and stuff like that. You know, like I actually think that'd be kind of fun. And when I say gods, by the way, I don't want it to be, for the most part, I don't like the idea of a physical manifestation like Thor. I don't want Thor to be walking around. I want this to be a statue or a rock or some kind of a relic that represents the god. It has no physical form unless it bequeaths its power to someone as an avatar. But I want that to be rare. I don't want it to be like, oh, well, this is Gore the God Butcher and he's killing the literal Thor. I want it to be more about the people who...
This is Gore the God Butcher's supposed chosen one.
Yes.
And he's just really a really good general. There's times where he can do things that are divine and people are like, oh, wait, maybe he is blessed by Gore.
Right. Like, I want that to be a thing. I want it to be where it's far more about the people who are living and breathing in these cities than perhaps the gods themselves. Because really, that's where the conflict lies, right? Like, that's where the because gods against gods, we've seen it, it's been done. I mean, we were just talking about Thor already, you know. It's a cool idea, but I feel like this is far more interesting where you get, like, a far more human and different take on it.
I can't get out of my mind that somehow these gods are going to become almost like city sports teams.
Okay, I could see that.
And I'm just getting the idea of like in college when they used to vandalize each other's statues.
Oh, that would be great. That I think that
they fucking dressed our Ram up in a sweatshirt.
We stole their pig, like that old episode of The Simpsons.
Yes.
Where see, like stuff like that would be super fun, and I think that you could have like a really fun, wacky adventure, and also a very serious one as well, where it's not a matter of, hey, they stole our mascot. It's like, you stole our fucking god, and people in my city are dying as a result.
Oh yeah, like there's probably going to be the gods who are like trickster gods, or like Bacchus, like joyful, just like ha ha ha, that's so funny, you stole that thing, and then there's just going to be the war god, just like, no, this ain't a fucking game. Go out there and bring me nothing but the ash of their cities.
Yeah, see, that sounds like, I love the idea that there's just like a panoply of gods out there, and it's a constant shift of pantheon. You know, so it's a matter of like, okay, well, in a real world context, right? It would be like, okay, so today we got Odin, we got Loki, and we got Marduk, and do we need Poseidon? Do we really need Poseidon?
Wow.
I'm more of a Hermes guy myself, you know, like, that's not true. Poseidon's cooler. But like, I like that idea where you're basically doing like, where the alliances shift, not based on the gods, but based on the followers of the gods.
And I know it goes against it, but it could be a separate thing as well. I've always liked crafting gods.
Yeah, well, I mean, you love crafting in general. Like,
Hephaestus.
Hephaestus is okay. I mean, he's like the immortal cuck, but that's fine.
Wow.
It's true!
He bonded with Aphrodite. He was not cucked. That whole line about, I'll work the forge and you can fuck whoever you want. No, they formed into a single being.
No, it's okay. It's not a bad thing that he's into it. Like, I mean, okay, let's be real. He's probably crafted a strap-on for her to peg him with, custom to his specifications. That's fine. That's totally okay. But let's be real. He's a cuck.
Don't.
And I mean that not in a derogatory term. Kinks are good. I mean, have your own thing. He's a cuckold. That's okay.
He loves his wife.
He does love his wife, but she does not give a fuck about him.
Oh no, she loved him so much. They combined. Their souls became one. Their souls became one. That is God canon.
God canon?
God canon.
Okay, so now let's get to the God canon, which is apparently going to be a super weapon in this campaign. Apparently.
Yeah. But God, can there be just a city of like to bring back the God Butcher and everything, but almost atheist? They're just, we don't need gods. Gods have caused nothing but trouble. Look what they're doing to you. These wars, they're pointless.
Can there be a god of atheists? Is that possible?
A god of atheists?
Yeah, I mean, is it possible?
See, I'm just thinking now of the Emperor of Mankind.
Oh, from Warhammer.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, because there's a whole theory in it that if he were to die, even though he doesn't believe in gods or spirituality, due to the sheer power of mankind's belief in him, he would come back as a god.
Interesting.
Not to say he's not a god.
That does sound like heresy.
But
right. So do we want to stick with this idea? Is this something that we can kind of run with?
I would like this to at least be either a nation or a series of nations.
Okay, yeah, maybe we don't make it an entire world, but maybe we make it a nation or something like that within the world that we're going to build. So let's have this be our anchor point then.
I would actually like to say that the gods in this area, they are in some way personified. Not saying that they are literally a person, but there's not a city-state who is just like rocks. Rocks are pretty cool.
Oh, so well, yeah, that's what I was saying before, where it's like, I want something that is a manifestation of their divinity, not like, so like, I want an item to represent the god. Basically.
Okay, because other nations, they could have the primal god, or...
What do you mean?
Well, assuming that not all gods in this world reside in... Because that'd be really focused. Like, I understand they're important, but however these gods came about, or why they're particularly here, that can come up later. That can be...
Yeah, or like, why can't they walk the earth, how their manifestations work and stuff like that. Yeah, we can get into that later.
But
so what I mean, what I'm trying to say when it comes to the manifestation of a god, I want it to be like, if you're a god of fire, I don't want just any old bonfire to represent the god. I want it to be like a brazier. I want it to be a candle. I want it to be like, I want some kind of representation that this is the god that we're talking about. It's not like the span of the god.
You can't look at all fire and suddenly be like, just like, oh no, that's God.
Right. Like, I want it to be something specific. Something specific, and I want it to be something that you have a symbol that represents your city. Like you said before, like something akin to a mascot. You know, so if maybe it's a torch, if we want to be, and then maybe you have fire gods kind of going at it, where there's the god of the forge, the god of the candle, the god of the just a wildfire. So like, so all of them represent different aspects of fire, and some of them like each other, some of them hate each other. Like that's what I mean. Like, you could have religious wars based like, you might have the same aspect represented, but it could be, you know, like, I just don't like you.
All right. To go back into the world building aspect of this, and
yes,
to how you can build upon it, What if the fact that there's all these gods, all these warring gods, all these gods of a similar thing, such as like fire, bonfire
aspects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if this was, for all intents and purposes, the first age? This is where, after the war, after the dust settles, that god is the god of fire.
Okay. So, interesting. So what if we have like all these different aspects, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe it's not the first stage, but maybe it's after some kind of great calamity or, cataclysm, where it's not just a matter of, well, why isn't there just one fire god? Maybe something happened where all of these aspects of these primal gods get split up and sundered into all of these different relics or these different representations. And what does that look like? What does maybe there was once originally a giant burning god of just fire. And now something happened to where, to bring up like the craft sequence, there's literally god wars that happen. And those aspects of what they represented just get sundered and changed. And now instead of wielding incredible divine might, maybe that's what it is. Maybe the only way that they can interact with the world and kind of influence it in any way is through their followers.
Yeah.
So something happened to where, do we want to call these original gods irresponsible? Is that because that sounds fun to me, like something along the lines of there were these immensely powerful gods that through hubris or through whatever fault of their own just become completely fucked up and ruin the universe that they're in.
Well, it could be the fact that, like, they were the first. They had no concept of some of the things that they were doing. Assuming that, say, all divine power comes from one divine source. Even if it's from different gods, those gods are all pulling from one well of divinity. Mm-hmm. And then what were to happen if suddenly, oh no, the well's dry, or the well vacuum sucks them back up?
So this is what I love about world building in general, is because you start down this one thread and it makes you ask so many different questions. So when you say that, it makes me think, okay, maybe what happened is the only way that the gods have power is through their followers, and this cataclysm destroyed all the original followers. So now they're basically starting over from scratch, trying to rebuild and regain their power, this immense cosmic power that they once had, and they're rebuilding one person at a time. And it's a matter of, like, I remember I used to be a great god. I would burn oceans, and now I'm living in the flick of a candle. And it makes you, but again, we keep harping on fire, but it could really go with any.
Oh, yeah, like agricultural gods, fertility gods would probably be like right there and building up followers quick.
Right, absolutely.
Fertility more than others.
And then I suppose it's a matter of, what's the currency? Is the currency the number of followers? Is the currency the faith in the follower? Maybe when we talk about that atheistic god, it's not an atheist god, but it's a god of nihilism. It's a god of oblivion. So you could have, a small number of followers, but the divine power comes in their belief and their devotion. And so that way it doesn't have to be like, well, obviously the one who's going to be the nicest god is going to get the most followers, or the one who you're just the most afraid of is going to get the most followers, stuff like that. But at the same time, when it comes down to devotion, when it comes down to faith, I think that's a resource that these gods are using. They're basically engines fueled and it's give and take. Again, to kind of take from the craft sequence a little bit.
Is the craft sequence 3 parts dead? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's.
Yeah, Max Gladstone. It's actually literally right here on my desk. This is the second book.
Yeah, that is totally a plug. Please give us money.
Yes, give us money to the 5 people who will listen to this. One of them, I'm sure, will give us money.
Listen, it's all in your subconscious. We are now literally the gods trying to just build followers one at a time.
Yeah. Oh, have you read American Gods?
Oh yeah.
So I have actually not. I'm only I've only heard like snippets, and I started it, and I found it to be kind of... I mean, it's Neil Gaiman. I don't really like Neil Gaiman, so...
Oh, you don't like Neil Gaiman or Terry Pratchett?
Yeah.
And oddly enough, both of them have touched
hold on.
these themes.
I like Neil Gaiman way more than I like Terry Pratchett.
Fuck you.
Let's just put it that... Whatever.
The man is dead.
Yeah, he is. Rip in peace, Terry Pratchett. He was a great writer. I'm not saying it's just that. Look, I had a bad entry into it. I started with Small Gods because a girl I was trying to fuck in college. What?
That's like that book is right about what we're talking about.
Yeah, I got like 12 pages into it. I'm like, this is... Now, mind you, okay, let's be real here. I was in college. I was a fucking edgelord in college. I was like 17 as a freshman in college, and I skipped 8th grade, remember?
No, I didn't.
You didn't know I skipped 8th grade?
No, how would that come up?
I don't know. Fucking... through this. When I was in college, I was reading Berserk, and I was like getting... Exactly! You're giving me a face, but I was literally an edgelord teenager because, man, I was getting into that grim, dark bullshit. Not even Warhammer, but just grit. Like, I wanted that black... I didn't want the rape horse, but I did want a dark story like Berserk. I was watching Ichi the Killer and Takashi Miike movies around that time. I was into probably the opposite of what Terry Pratchett is.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. It's a bit happier, just a tiny bit happier.
I was not into that. I've never been into happiness, like as a genre. I mean, as a genre.
You've never been that big about being happy.
That's also partially true. No, but I've always been into the darker stuff. Like, I remember someone asking me, like, "Hey, what's a good summer book read?" And I'm just like, "Oh,
The Bell Jar's pretty good."
No, please, that's no. But it's like I only read books about child soldiers in Africa, which is a great book. Beasts of No Nation is fucking fantastic. Made me cry on the train. It's great. Mm-hmm. But anyway, let's reel it back. Let's try and focus up on this. Oh man.
So not the first age, but it's where the gods are kind of splintered or coming into their own right.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe it is the first age. Maybe these gods are trying to figure it out. Maybe the goal is to become the pirate king in the form of they have to collect their perfect combination. Actually, what might be interesting is not so much like, hey, I want to be the ultimate fire god, but maybe you have divinities that can maybe mix and merge and they become a single divinity just through the right combination, the right kind of... Wouldn't that be kind of cool? I think that'd be kind of interesting to work with.
So like a god of law and a god of justice.
And then they merge because... Yeah, okay. So, oh man, what could you do with that? I mean, I feel like you could... I feel like at that point, you're basically just playing with the colors of Magic the Gathering. You know, where it's like, hey, I have a red deck, and I have a black deck, and now I got a Rakdos deck, which is red and black, by the way. And it's just a matter of, like, what they represent gets mixed together, and... That's kind of an interesting concept.
But you could also have it that the gods that do that, while they are more well-rounded, they're not necessarily stronger, because it's not the pure form. Like, something that is warmth and community, that's all well and good, but someone who's primal fire, gotta keep going back to fire.
See, yeah, we should...
Come on, people worship fire first.
It's true.
Sun gods? Sun gods, really
Prometheus,
good head start.
Yeah. Helios. Yeah. What's the one? Quetzalcoatl, right? Isn't that a sun god?
Quetzalcoatl?
Aztecs.
Yeah, I think that and also harvest. Yeah, but I know that the idea is to be generic, so it's not necessarily that you have to... Not generic in the sense of no one's playing Pathfinder in this setting. They can, but you don't have to be just like, yeah, maybe the players are gods. Maybe the players are followers of the gods. We're just doing setting. Yeah,
no, that's my idea is so much that it's a matter of you don't even necessarily, like, this is more like an exercise in creativity. You don't even necessarily have to play this as a tabletop game, but the idea, I mean, we both come from a place of tabletop, like expertise. well, I wouldn't call it expertise, but experience. Let's call it experience. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're going for. But also, like, I just love the idea. Like, I want to be as creative as possible with this. And I kind of want to be off the wall. I kind of want to not have rules restrictions, which is why I don't want to talk about this in the sense strictly, of a system of a tabletop game. I want to talk about it from a creative aspect, and then maybe later on down the line, once we have the groundwork, then we can start talking about, okay, now we have this creative, really interesting, fleshed out world. Let's go ahead and nail down the specifics of how these mechanics will work in a game. I don't think this is going to turn into, like us creating an RPG together, but I think it's going to come down to us creating a really interesting setting in which you can play an RPG, basically. But to your point, what you were saying before about the idea of, again, we keep saying that there's the primal fire god as opposed to a god of fire and community. Maybe that's a hearth. Yeah. Maybe that's where you get these different aspects, is where you're just basically mixing different aspects together. And so maybe the candle is a god of fire and a god of knowledge. So you're getting these primal aspects, these primal ideas, and you're kind of like focusing them into a single object that then is telling of what it is. It is, like a candle, for example, it is light, illumination, it is fire, all of these things. And so what does that represent? For me, when I think of a candle, I also think of someone who's holding a candle in a library or like they need that candle for something. They need it for light. They need it for, maybe it's hope. Maybe all of a sudden a candle, which is, fire and hearth and knowledge, maybe it's represents something new. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think there's something to that. I think that there's something really interesting when it comes down to creating or mixing faiths together. And that's why I like the idea that you were saying earlier, where you're creating a pantheon, or like you're creating a team of gods, right? Like, I'm joining the party together, but instead of gods, it's like communities. So you're literally world building. You're literally world building and nation building together. I think that's actually a really fun and interesting idea, because then you have all of the fun shit of party conflict, which is just like nations and cities kind of going at each other, and there's betrayal, and then there's new alliances. I think that's really fun.
And you're creating your own creation myths at that point.
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't even think about that.
Because like, say for whatever reason you decide that you don't want to be a god, you could be just a hero in it, and then maybe you ascend to godhood or demigod or.
Well, what I also like about that idea as well is when you say creation myth, right? It's not just a creation of, okay, this is the fire god, they came from the sun, yada yada yada. You're also talking about, how did the god of hearth become to be? Well, the nations or the city-states of such and such and such created an alliance, and a new god was formed. Mm-hmm. And I suppose that's where we go. Are new gods formed? Or how do they... And what happens if there's a break in the alliance? Do they split into their original forms? How does it work? Is it a matter of faith? Because I love the idea that as much influence as the gods have on the people, through their alliances and through their shows of faith, also influence the gods. Right?
Yeah, I would have to say that this world then would need something that is able to not necessarily like bind the gods or bound them, but have some sort of alliance or power with them. Kind of like, all right, we're going to sit down, write up a alliance, but this is also powering through divinity. This is a divine contract that is binding mortal god and us.
Maybe. So I love that idea. I love the idea that it's when two cities come together, it's a very solemn religious ritual. It's very serious. you come together and it's a matter of like, look, I mean, I imagine it differs from god to god. I imagine that the god of revels, when he has his alliances, that ritual is going to look way different compared to the god of pain. Like that's going to be oh man,
if they have an alliance,
that's going to be, oh man, we're putting that on FetLife. That's what's that'll be fun though. That would be
Man, that got real out of hand.
I know, right? Those nations together. So actually, I think that's kind of fun, and I think what that should mean is it either means a new relic is created. So you take the essence of both gods. There's some kind of ritual, and you merge them together, right? It's a matter of perhaps you're creating a new divine relic to represent that new aspect of it. And so does that mean when there's like a betrayal, or when that god dissolves because the two nations dissolve, how permanent is it? Is it a matter of, can you break a god? Like once you've mixed the essences, once you've merged those two divine essences together, can it be undone?
I would say that maybe it can be done, but it leaves them changed. Like,
okay.
Don't know. They break apart, they grow as people. They see some other gods.
Oh, wow, that'd be awkward. Well, no, because what I'm thinking of, right, is imagine that there are these two gods, these two nations that come together. They merge essences because, like, yes, this is the way to do it. And then one of those nations then wipes out the other one. Like, how does that work? Because, yes, you still have faithful towards the new god, but you've essentially just stolen the power of your god through, like, sharp negotiating. And maybe that only works once. Maybe that only works a couple of times. Or maybe there's a nation out there that is basically going around pillaging and going from god to god and being like, look, we're merging this at, like, just a giant conglomerate of all of these stolen essences of gods from city to city.
And that's a good villain.
That makes a really fun, interesting villain, because, and I imagine that you could do it in a number of ways, right? Where there's this giant death ball of a god nation that's kind of steamrolling through. It's like, look, we're either going to extinguish your god, or you're going to become part of our god, and that changes it.
You will join the god collective.
Right. You will join the god collective, and so that's their idea of power. Whereas I'm sure that there's some other skinhead nation of gods where it's like, we only take fire gods. We only take this specific aspect of gods. It's a matter of like, we're pure, okay? But there are other gods that are just like, no, we're a giant death ball of power. That's what the essence or the aspect doesn't matter to them. It's the divine power that comes with it.
I would also like to think that there's a certain threshold that you hit before it's just like, oh god, we don't even know what our god is anymore. It's a faceless, thousand gibbering mouth thing that we worship, and it's incomprehensible. And
I mean, maybe that's what a chaos god is, right? Maybe a chaos god is that giant death ball that just takes whatever it can. And so, like, yeah, I'll eat a god of law. It's not going to win because I am all-consuming, that kind of thing. Oh man! And then so that actually asks the question: what's the pecking order? How does it work? Is it a matter of okay? Hold on. Bear with me here. Is that the aberrant? Is that the aberration? So normally, when you merge gods, like there's an actual mingling of essences, or maybe there's like I feel like there's a whole system and law to this idea.
It's a delicate process.
It's a delicate process because it's like, oh, we don't want too much of our god to be lost. Normally you want around the same level of power between the two gods to make sure that, they're both well represented so nothing happens.
Well, I mean, it can be something where it's just like, okay, this is a merging of two similar gods or two in-power gods that become one. Or it can be just like, oh man, our god is It just like, and it's more of you took that god as a skin graft onto this other god, because it was either that or that god would just find oblivion, and no god wants oblivion. It wants to live on, even if it means as it's only some small portion of a greater god.
Okay, hold on. You just said something that I think is really cool, and I want to go with it. Oblivion. I want oblivion to be its own thing. I don't want it to be a god. I want to be the absence of gods. I want it to be perhaps what the gods fear, perhaps what the gods run from. You know, and I think that this is, man, there's a lot to this concept that we can really unravel. I feel like there's so much interesting shit that we can kind of uncover. There's like alliances. We can sit down and be like, okay, this is a nation of this particular set of gods. This is a nation of this particular set of gods. What do you think we need to focus on? What do you think we can
like
look at?
What's the next step?
Yeah,
I would say what would be the god that seems to organize things quickest? Because that's going to be your older civilization. That's going to be the one who is like a cornerstone. You need a cornerstone civilization, even if it's something that becomes a what do you call those? Old civilizations, progenitor. Yeah, like one of those where maybe like they were a progenitor civilization of gods, and somehow something went wrong. We have their buildings, but we still honor them, because without them, man, we wouldn't have these buildings and irrigation because they built it.
So that's okay. That's so. What you're saying is the next episode we go with, it's going to be us creating the first god and the first nation under that god. Is that what you want to do?
That'll be his name, yes.
Oh my god. Okay, so yeah, cool. Let's do that. So the beginning of the next episode will be us sitting down and creating the first god that we have, or one of many. Yeah, one of many gods, but I think that's a good start. We have the general concept of this is a world wherein something has happened.
I have an idea. Don't tell me what your god's going to be. I won't tell you what my god's going to be. This is going to be the first joining of gods.
Ooh.
And this is then where that trend started.
Okay.
So maybe our gods are similar, and we build off that. Maybe yours is the god of pain, and mine is like the god of craftsmanship. And it was just like, all right, man, I don't know, let's do this.
I just imagine we build a lot of spikes at that point.
Yeah, no, it's just like, how did you two meet? Just like, well, we both like spikes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, I was more into pittons and nails, but he was more into like flesh hooks. But
there's a common thread. We found it.
We made it work.
Yeah.
I actually really like that idea. I think that's going to be really fun. So is there anything else that we can kind of focus on in the now? That's a great second episode. I think that we're going to go with that.
You also talked about how building and community outreach kind of thing. So if you want to have one or two people who might want to develop like the concept of a primal god of some kind.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that come next episode, we're going to create an email address where you can send us some questions. We do need a name for this idea, but let's do a TLDR of what we've done today.
Oh god, yeah, we don't even have like a world name.
Yeah, we don't have a world name for it. We don't need one. This is why it's fun. This is because we're creating all of this together. Let's do a TLDR for those. Why would you skip to this part? You just missed all the best shit. But
got a lot of time.
Here's what we've done today. We've created a general core concept wherein the world we are creating is filled with thousands of gods, or perhaps they're just shards of their original selves. They take form in physical representations that are relics, and each nation worships their own relic, or maybe it's
avatar, or
well, yeah, and then with that, we've also created the concept that these gods can merge and maybe split, and sometimes maybe it's done coercively, other times maybe it's done by, or I imagine most of them would be done collaboratively. Like they do this because they want that merged essence to become stronger because they believe that this alliance would be stronger.
Or fear of oblivion, or fear of going into the God Ball.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a really good. Oh man, yeah, that's a really good part as well. You know, like a matter of it's fear. My nation is about to be snuffed out. I will throw my torch upon the. Again, we keep going back to fire.
We really
but
need to move away from fire God.
Yeah.
So clearly, Fire God is going to be the strongest.
We're not going with it. No, because that's just the Fire Nation.
Also, if you do not come with a Fire God next time, I'll be surprised.
Yeah. Well, if I do a Fire God, no, I'm not going to do a Fire God. I'm gonna go with something different.
The White Supremacist God.
Oh God, no, we can't start this like this.
My country's name is Hitler.
No, wasn't that an actual game?
That was, yes.
Yeah.
It was Fantasy Germany, and it was perfectly fine.
Did you do that on purpose?
No!
You have an impressive ability to create really problematic things where they should not exist. Every map that you draw looks like a dick.
What?
And
I've
balls.
gotten much better at that.
Yeah, because we kept pointing and laughing at you for the dungeons.
But now I look for the dick.
I mean, I could have told you that, but... Yeah, but then also Hitler. Hitler was really bad.
It meant wall or something.
In what?
German?
Yeah, no.
No, it doesn't mean it in German.
I know it doesn't. Come on. That's way too soft to be called wall in German. It's
murder.
I think you just did the last podcast murder.
Murder. But yeah, I forget what it was, but I think it meant like stronghold or something.
Ah. I would believe that.
Which is funny in German, and stronghold is just like Hitler.
Yeah.
Stronghold.
Hitler. Yeah. It sounds like a little hill. Yeah. Or Hitler with an M.
Perfectly. All right. But anyhow, yeah. So next time we're going to try and come up with a fusion of gods, because we also came up with the fact that gods fuse.
Well, no. What we're going to do is we're going to come together at the same time with our own god, and then we will create the fusion of the two and the lore behind it, and we'll do the fusion dance, and we'll create the history and the nation and the ideas surrounding the first fusion. I think that's a really great place to start, and yeah, I think that sounds really fun. So this was our first episode. We will have ways. Yeah, thank you for listening. If you did, thanks I mean, we've got all sorts of problems, as you can probably tell, but we're gonna get better, and we'll have like an email address that you can.
Emotionally.
I can't guarantee about the emotional part, but I can probably do the. We're definitely gonna have a better microphone by the next time, because I was supposed to have one now, but eBay, am I right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so as of next time, I should have an email address for you guys to reach us at, and if you have any questions, just wait until then. Thank you so much for listening, and we love you. And
good night or good morning.
It's not that's weird. Just
no, that's positive affirmation. That will really help the one person out there. Oh my God! You have a great day.
That is true. I do hope that wherever you are, you have a great day, and that you world build with us.